I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, October 17th at 7 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's start off this meeting in an unusual fashion. Let's start by having a roll call.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
I'm here.
Supervisor Derek Daniil.
Here.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Waite.
Here.
Supervisor Jeannie Vogel.
Here.
Good to go. We got everybody this evening. We'd like to know who's in the audience. Thanks for all turning out on this blissful, wonderful night. How about we start with you, sir?
Jason Feldman.
Jason?
Hugh Zettel, 5986 Gordon Drive.
What do you want my address?
Carrie Nellis.
Craig Nellis.
Dick Weidman, 4108 Country View Road.
Jan Zahn.
Betty Son, Cameron Eilish Patarsky,
Josh Koryegi.
Pam Jorns. Cam Snyder. Gwen Gray Boyce.
Great. And our two videographers?
Derek Demise, Town of Sevastopol.
Heidi Chapman, Sevastopol.
There we go. Welcome all. Thank you much for coming again on this wonderful evening. Public participation. If there's someone here that would like to speak on something that's not on our agenda, this would be an opportune time to do that. Anyone wishing to speak? We'll all speak at once. Okay, we will move on to the business then. I assume our agenda was properly noticed,
The agenda was properly
and
noticed.
then a motion to adopt would be in order.
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Derek, second
Second.
by Mark to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting September 19th, and the Special Board of Supervisors meeting from September 24th. You should have all had a chance to review those prior to the meeting. So if you have a motion to approve, would be in order.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept and place on file the Board of Supervisors minutes of September 19th and the Special Board of Supervisors minutes of September 24th, 2022.
Thank you. Motion by Linda, second
I will
by
second that.
Jeannie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we move on. Pending business. First item of business this evening is the reval. I think this is our third trip on this topic. I believe all of the questions that we had were answered in the most recent memo that came from Mark Brown, who's the president of Associated Appraisal. And basically what he's saying is that he will do the assessment in 2024 if we want, start their field work in late 2023, and that they would split the amount of money that we would pay for this to a 40-60 option. And that would give us the ability to not have to pay obviously the full amount up front, which we don't have anyhow, but we're very close. So in that case, if we do the full reval, which is $143,500, they would bill us for the first portion $57,500 in year 2023, and the rest in 2024, or $86,000. We had some conversation at the different meetings regarding Board of Review, and it's really his sense that we don't want to do the Board of Review until after the equalized values come out from the Department of Revenue, which provides him basically a gut check on how right or wrong he is relative to the appraisals of everyone's property. The way the reval works is, even though it occurs in 2024, it assumes, it makes the starting point January 1 of 2023. That would be the assessed value as of that date. All right.
Are we
The
gonna
date,
do it
if
as
we-
of this January, this coming January?
24. I said that
yeah.
wrong. Apologize.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. So it would be in that year. I called and talked to him today too, just to further clarify that portion about the equalized value. so that they do have that check against what they assess, so they don't come in completely out of whack. And hopefully, from his experience, they won't do that. This will be, in 2024, will be 4 years that we're out of compliance, so we really do need to do it. We really don't have a discussion point unless we moved it ahead. DOR talked about, I asked him full assessment versus partial. And
You mean interior,
right.
include the interior
Full
or
and-
not?
Full interior and exterior, or partial, meaning exterior only. And he said they have approximately about 60% compliance on the full assessment. It was more years ago when they could take more direct action. But he said it's not too bad, and he said what happens is if you decide not to allow someone into your dwelling for the assessment and you have an issue, you are unable to contest it. So there is a check and balance there, so if somebody thinks they're, saving themselves something by not allowing them in, and then they have a value that they cannot live with, that privilege of having the Board of Review is not available to them. And he said, had we had a review in a more recent time setting, within, say, a 5-year period, then he'd say a partial assessment would be more than accurate. But he said since we were going to be 16 to 18 years out, we really need to get everybody up on the same level. And that does not necessarily mean a tax increase, because I think over the last 16 years, property values have changed. And I think what will happen is the equalized value will go up enough that we'll probably stay with about the same or close mill rate. So that was the output of my conversation with him. So it's really up to you what you want to do. If we want to move ahead, we need to indicate that to him and move on. So, discussion from anyone?
I just have a couple of comments. So in his original assessment services summary that he gave to us a couple months ago, I think.
Yep.
So I can understand that a full reval will be $143,500. Now, in that initial summary, additions were mailings
Right.
of almost 7,000, plus personal property, plus maintenance.
Right.
So that totals, I think we're still going to end up paying $170,225, correct?
Yes.
And I'm sure he would be okay with splitting that total over 2 years, right?
I'm sure we could ask him. I think the question was asked by Amy. Did you not ask that? It's in maybe the notes that the maintenance
ask
still
that.
applies?
Yes.
So the reval portion of it obviously doesn't include the maintenance, but I'm sure we could work something out to that if that's what you'd like to try and achieve.
Because I was trying to remember what we put when we had the budget work session.
One,
I
we put in
think we
5 or
allocated-
10?
I don't remember, but I'm just wondering now if that's
You
going to
recall,
be
Amy?
enough. Well, if we don't catch it in 2023, we'll catch it in 2024, right?
I mean, we're close. I think we're around
Yeah, I think we
130
were close.
against the 153, and we have another year to add to that.
Right. So
So-
we'd be okay with the 170,000 over 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So anyone else have a question on this? So,
We're putting in 12,000 for 2023.
then that would have brought us up to what, Amy?
132.
132? I'm gonna say 130 now. Okay, that's good. And then we'll adjust, that's all right, we cut back what we were gonna do, we cut it in half. Okay, sorry, I recollect that now. All right, so let's just have a motion to approve that we will move forward with either a full or partial evaluation based on where we start with a motion.
Okay, I guess, everybody's so quiet tonight. I guess I'll make a motion to contract with Associated Appraisal Consultants, Inc. for a full revaluation at a cost of $143,500 plus incidentals, to be accomplished. The reval will be as of January 1st, 2024, and the payment will be over the course of 2 years.
Okay, we have a motion by Linda, second by?
I'll second that.
Second by Jeannie. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Amy, will you do the honors with Mr. Brown?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, next item we have is the allocation of funds from the Strategic Community Partnership. And Cameron is here this evening to sway us at the very last minute. We had this discussion last month where the amount of money that was being set aside as part of this had grown substantially from roughly right 25,000 to over 75,000 as a result of the change in the room tax. And we were basically trying to see if there were things that we could do to make sure that our business community is getting the best value for the amount of money, since it was such a significant increase over the last couple of years. I had a follow-on conversation with Kaylin this morning regarding a little bit more of her thoughts, and I'll be happy to let her have a couple minutes to share them with you. But basically, her take is that their group actually supports the entire 54235 zip code. As we know, we call it Sturgeon Bay, but encompasses a lot more than that. And that they have added a full-time marketing coordinator who, is my impression, is more than willing to go to work for our businesses to try and enhance their business opportunities. And I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit more about the increased promotional activity, because she touched on features on our businesses, press releases, and other things. And also an increase in the social media presence for our businesses, where they would feature them on a monthly basis. And lastly, it would be her intentions to report to us quarterly or whatever we think is best, come back and kind of tell us her involvement. So, Cameron, why don't you take just a couple minutes and just build off of the points I touched on, or any others?
Sure. Well, thank you again. I'm very happy to speak to the group this evening. And as the chairman had mentioned, we did have a follow-up conversation after I presented last month at the September board meeting. As the chairman mentioned, we have added a new full-time staff member to our team this past May. So we do have a staff of 4 that is in our office, one being a marketing coordinator. Rachel Malcor was added to the team. With the assistance of the event promotions that we had mentioned before at the last month with the Valmead Threshery and with the dairy breakfast, especially with the Threshery celebrating their 40th anniversary coming up this upcoming 2023 year, we know that we could definitely be of an assistance to the town of Sevastopol in marketing these events. As we also discussed increased social media, in my presentation that I provided last month, we do have a far reach with both of our Facebook, our Instagram, as well as our website, and would be more than happy to provide a social media post for each of our Town of Sevastopol business members. So I also did want to share, as this came in today from one of our lodging partners, Westwood Shores, one of their letters of support that I just wanted to share with the group this evening. Just very quickly, we noticed that one from Greg and Denise Stillman of Westwood Shores. We noticed that one of the agenda items on tonight's Board of Supervisors meeting is allocation of funds, strategic community partnerships. We apologize for not being able to attend in person, but we wanted to share our support of directing as much funding as possible to Destination Sturgeon Bay. Their continuing efforts to promote the Sturgeon Bay area, including properties and businesses located in the town of Sevastopol, have been a major contributor to our success. Westwood Shores Waterfront Resort opened in July of 1996 and consists of 38 condominium resort units located in the town of Sevastopol. We have been active members of DSB and feel strongly that the organization has been a crucial part of our continued success over the years. While it's sometimes difficult to evaluate why visitors are coming to the area, we know from speaking to our guests, the DSB website referrals Personal service from staff and DSB events have been key components in guests choosing our area and our property over other choices. Westwood Shores Waterfront Resort has collected significant room tax dollars since its implementation in 2007. I just wanted to take that moment just to read that from one of our lodging members, where the room tax comes from. I know Destination Sturgeon Bay is a huge asset to our lodging partners, and we really pride ourselves on communicating with the lodging partners and making sure that if they have rooms available that we fill them. So I just hope that you take into consideration that this evening, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the group might have.
Good, thank you. Any questions from the board relative to this? Well, Beth, you might have one.
Well, I don't have questions, but I'd like to say it.
Feel free.
Yes, downtown Sturgeon Bay, the growth down there is phenomenal, and I think we can attribute that to Pam Seiler and her staff, and now going forward to Cameron and her new people. So, it's just amazing how far downtown Sturgeon Bay has come. You mentioned a zip code of 54235. Carlsville also has a zip code of 54235, and so does Jacksonport. So it's not necessarily zip code related. I did look at, and I think we started room tax in 2008. So from that point forward, we have always designated our strategic community marketing funds going to Destination Sturgeon Bay Visitor Bureau before that. I did look at the Carlsville Business Association. There are 7 members in the Carlsville Business Association. 3 of those members are owned by or operated by Sevastopol residents. Door County Coffee, up until recently, Door County Candle Company, and Little Caesars, the gas station convenience store. That owner lives in Sevastopol. And then I looked at the Jacksonport Area Business Association, and 7 out of their 27 members were owned by or operated by Sevastopol residents. So, if we are going to support businesses owned by Sevastopol residents, I believe that Carlsville Business Association and the Jacksonport Area Business Association should benefit from some of those strategic community marketing funds. To run an ad in the Peninsula Pulse is around $700 for a half page. And again, if you look at this, there are several businesses in here that are owned by Sevastopol residents. Likewise with the Destination Door County Guide, and I did go through the Sturgeon Bay's Guide. They're all wonderful publications. I counted I think, a picture of Cave Point, an advertisement for Door 44, an advertisement, I think, for Bayshore Inn, Glidden Lodge, and Westwood Shores. I'll just go back and say, our Sevastopol business owners are in Sturgeon Bay, they're in Carlsville, and they're in Jacksonport, and I think all of them should benefit from those dollars. So.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Feelings one way or the other? You're going to have to vote.
Did you want me to propose a division, or, just for discussion purposes?
Sure, that's fine.
The budget for the Carlsville Business Association, I believe, is around $45,000. The town of Egg Harbor splits their SCP funds between Carlsville and the Egg Harbor Business Association. Jacksonport, I believe, I only talked to a former member of the Jacksonport Business Association, and she was not sure how many dollars they receive from Jacksonport, but I'm going to guess that Jacksonport designates the Jacksonport Business Association, but I was unable to talk to the current president. So, if we wanted to throw out $60% to Destination Sturgeon Bay and 20 and 20% each to Jacksonport or Carlsville and Carlsville, just for a starting point. I mean, we're talking about $70,000. Or 10, 10, and 80.
Dan, you got some people in the back.
Yes,
At some point, can we add to that conversation, or is that allowed in your discussion or not?
eventually we'll get there.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe not tonight, but it will, no, we will. Okay. I'm not sure I'm in favor for or against it, but I think we might consider, if it's somewhere we go, I think we might consider trimming a little bit of the money back. I think you'd be giving Carlsville almost half, not quite half, but a good third of their budget increase through those dollars. I don't know if they will achieve enough with that, but I'm not opposed to designating some funds to both of those organizations and see where to go. What do the rest of you feel? Don't all speak at once.
Well, when it's kind of
Army?
it was kind of not expected, right? So, just off the top of my head, it seems that they do have businesses. I can see maybe some of the dollars going, but I'm not sure about 20% each.
Okay. Mark, what do you think?
I'm kind of split down the middle between Jeannie and Linda's thoughts. And I think you're right, Dan, that's a lot of money to give if we are going to be doing 20,000 to Jacksonport. That is quite a bit. Or, excuse me, to Carlsville.
So it was 20%.
Or 20%, excuse me, 20%.
Would be
About 16,000.
14, yeah.
15,000.
or 10, 10, and 80.
Derek, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the increase going all to Destination Sturgeon Bay is a lot of money for the very few businesses that we have here. I mean, given they're large businesses, I'd like to see some of this go right into the businesses directly for their advertisement.
Okay. Let's hold on this for a couple minutes. Or comments from the floor? Yes.
Have you talked to Parker Renew from Carlsville or Vicki Wilson from?
Have I?
Anyone to see like how they would feel if you gave them money over destinations? I sit on the.
Other than elated?
To give them, I mean, I think Vicki Wilson, I know Parker Renew, I'm very good friends with them. They attend a lot of the Sturgeon Bay things. They volunteer at the Sturgeon Bay. They donate a lot of money to Sturgeon Bay. I think they would be heartbroken to know that it's going to Carlsville, where Carlsville isn't really promoting a lot of things that, I mean, they promote a couple things that happen in their area, but Destination Sturgeon Bay really promotes the whole entire group, and to get the people from different areas to go to Carlsville Days or whatever they're having there, that I think if you actually physically talk to the people, the businesses that are there, I think they have if they have $45,000 in their budget now, I think if you gave them 10 more, it's really not going to do much, where if you gave Destination Sturgeon Bay that money and talked to them about what they wanted to do, or had our board go talk to Carlsville Association or Jacksonport, we would be happy to sit in on conversations with them to see what they want to do, but I feel it's that you're giving money to an organization that doesn't really care that they have the money or not.
And all right, you indicated you did not talk to Carlsville, right? Or was it Jacksonport? No, you talked to...
I talked to Vicki Wilson.
Oh, yeah, Vicki Wilson from Door County Coffee, and she's Sevastopol.
And she's very supportive of Destination Sturgeon Bay.
Okay. And Pam, you had a comment?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that it was clear to everyone, first of all, where this money is coming from in these room taxes. The room taxes are collected by people who are staying, or by the organizations, the lodging members, for people who are staying here.
Right.
So according to the state statute, 70% of that goes back to a destination marketing organization strictly for the marketing of that community or that area. And then the 30% that you're speaking of goes back to the municipality in which it was collected. That 30% is up to you to do with whatever you like. These SCP funds, these Strategic Community Partnership Funds, are monies that are actually coming from Destination York County back to the communities where they were collected. And that is based upon this memorandum of understanding that we've had since the beginning of time. So I want to make that clear, is that the reason that these monies are even available, that we're having these discussions, is because organizations like Destination Sturgeon Bay are doing their job in getting people here and putting those people into those rooms. And that is how that money is collected. So it's not as if each of these individual communities, is getting to pick and choose how they want to spend taxpayer money, because that's not what this is about. So I just want to make that clear, that if you can show me, or perhaps tell us, where these other organizations are working to get as many people into the county and into our community as what Destination Sturgeon Bay is, I think you are getting a lot of value for the money that you are giving them, even though that money has now been increased from 5.5% to 8%.
No, I fully understand your comments, and we've talked about that at the town board on numerous occasions. And I think what provoked it was just what you said, the fact that the change presented so much additional, and then you naturally start to ask, what's the next question? I have not talked to anyone with Carlsville or Jacksonport. I hadn't made my mind up one way or the other whether I thought there was merit to doing that or not doing it. I'm assuming that their business is not knowing and certainly open to input, that they would, at their community level, promote the businesses that were in their community as well. So I would think that any fund, incremental fund that they get, I don't assume that they would waste, but that's just my opinion. Yes?
I talked to other lodging partners in Sevastopol, and the majority of them, one example is one in Jacksonport. They are part of Jacksonport's business association just because they're in that area, but they see the biggest bang for their dollar going through Destination Sturgeon Bay. And that was with amongst all the lodging partners that I talked to, they all agreed to that point. Why fix a broken wheel?
Okay. Well, thank you. Yes.
Oh, and if I just might add, that as I mentioned, Destination Sturgeon Bay, we do have 4 staff members that are working in the office 5 days a week. The community business associations that you referenced are both part-time, employees, I would say, of the Community Business Association. I was hoping, from the presentation that we shared, with the activity guide that we produce, with our social media reach, with our website, and then with our lodging partners that we have the support of tonight here too, that you see that, the biggest bang for your buck would be with Destination Sturgeon Bay and what we can do with those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a recreational component to this as well? At one time, originally, there was a recreational component to the room tax?
No, they actually, I think, Dick, originally they said no, but I think over time they've expanded the areas that Destination Door could apply funds, and I think they broadened it. I'm only going back on an old conversation where we were looking at one point in time about snowmobile or ATV maps, and I think now Destination Door County funds some of that. I'm not positive, but it seems to me, I believe that's happening. If that's what you're referencing, something similar.
When the room tax originally came out,
Yeah.
there was a recreational component to it.
All right, back to the board. What would we like to do?
Well, the persuasive points, and being that there hasn't been an extensive conversation with these businesses, it seems like the people that are here to speak are saying that the significant amount is worthwhile to the organization to promote the businesses, so.
Okay, so someone want to put this into a motion and decide where we're going to move on?
Is this every 3 years or?
This
Yeah,
is 3
3-year
years,
commitment.
correct.
Mhm.
I mean, and this comes up in 3 years, we'll have a lot of time to decide what, if any, changes are appropriate. And I think this came to us a little quicker than we anticipated, but that's here nor there at the moment. So. Well, I can table this, even though it'll drive everyone nuts from the destination door in Sturgeon Bay.
No, I think we should make a decision.
Well, can I propose 10, 10, and 80?
Whatever motion you like, Linda.
Have some discussion on that, or?
Absolutely.
I just, but again, I think they made the case of the entire amount going to Destination Door County. I'm sorry, Destination Sturgeon Bay. I'm looking at the words Destination Door County.
Well, since we seem to be at some impasse here, I'd love to have more background and input from both of those other organizations. And I would say the prudent thing to do right now is to stay the course. That would be, if you ask me what my take on it is, I'd stay the course at this juncture. I would invite anyone and everyone to come back over the course of the next couple of years and understand what opportunities, what opportunities we can capture and go after, and see what value might come of these other organizations, what they might bring to the party as well. Because I'm sure that unless Door County reverses itself, we're going to have a lot more growth over the next couple of years based on all of the business that you're bringing to us. So we could be sitting here in 3 years talking about $100,000 and still asking the same question. So that's my 2 cents. So.
I kind of wish that Carlsville and Jacksonport would show up here and ask us, you know, the owners that are in Sevastopol that own businesses up there, come to us too. You know, I don't think they've reached out to us at all, have they? They know this is going on.
No, and I think I talked, Josh, to you a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep.
And, because he called and had concern about this and talked about the fact that obviously we don't have a business community. I asked him if he had input to that group or if that group wanted to come forward and do anything. Without having a downtown business district, we lack some of the same driving features that they have in Baylor. Obviously, he feels strongly that they bring value to his business. So. Well, I generally don't make motions, but to move this thing along so that we have an evening going, I will create and make a motion that we retain Destination Sturgeon Bay as the strategic community partnership organization that we will use for our funds.
I'll second that.
Motion by Dan, second by Jeannie. To continue with Destination Sturgeon Bay as our strategic community partnership funding resource. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Motion, all right. Motion carries. All right, good luck, spend it wisely.
Thank you.
Any ideas?
Yes.
Please.
I'm fresh out right now, but thank you. All right. Moving forward, Shower Road update. Laddie, can you put up the map up there for me? I'll try and talk to this a little bit. Okay. We've had a continuing discussion at the town level and with the board regarding Shower Road. Shower Road is the road that enters at the end of WD, if you're not familiar with it, and goes into Cape Point County Park. And on the map up there, you'll see the red line, which is County WD or Clark Lake Road, and you'll see the yellow line going into the green square area, which is Cape Point County Park. There's been issues with respect to Shower Road over parking and access for emergency vehicles and rescue vehicles, ambulances, et cetera, et cetera. We've had a consistent problem because of the narrow roadway and no shoulders with people parking there even though it is signed for no parking and the road is marked and the signs are up. And emergency vehicles have not been able to get in there easily to when there's a rescue or requirement. So last year I was asked to chair a committee to address that. And we've had a couple of meetings with representatives from the DNR, both Potawatomi and Cape Point Park, with county administrator, the Parks Department from the county, the Highway Commissioner from the county, the chair of the Parks Committee, and also recently we've included both Hugh Zettel and Dale Vogel, our county supervisors for the Sevastopol Township. And we try to come up with ideas on where to go with this problem and how to address it. And one of the steps that we took prior to this most recent meeting was the town hired a engineering firm to go out and give us some ideas of what they could do with that road, given the requirements that were specific to the DNR, which was to deal with potential burial sites, as well as protected species that need to be considered in any expansion. Over time, we had a large discussion with the DNR as to what the width of that road could be. I believe in 2009, the town repaved that road, but due to restrictions given by the current DNR manager for Whitefish Bay Dunes, we were limited to a very narrow road with no shoulders. And thus, we've only made the matter worse with parking and the narrowness of the road, and the fact that we have no shoulders has created issues with vehicles or bicyclists going off the edge of the road and either damaging themselves physically or their vehicles. So we got together this group last week, and my intent tonight is kind of recap what was discussed and where we think this is going. There were 4 or 5 different options that were thrown out by the group. One was to add a Cape Point parking lot or expand the existing one. Another idea was to create a Whitefish Bay Dunes parking lot, one that would be on that road, but not part of the main parking lot that they currently have. Another one had great support, was a toll road. Well, it was my idea, but the idea that did get kicked around a little bit was charge a fee for access, like they do at the state parks. Try and control the fact that there are 1 million visitors going through Cape Point Park a year. Another one was to rebuild the roadway, and I mentioned we hired an engineer to do that, and so we discussed that a little bit in depth. And the last idea was to create a totally new road going into Cape Point Park directly. This idea was brought forth by Thad Ash, the Highway Commissioner, and probably received the most support of all the options, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Thad also reviewed the Cedar Corp estimates and believes that they were significantly higher than they need to be. But you have to give credit to Cedar Corp, who did the work, because they dealt with a projected cost based on the fact that we would try to acquire grants from the Wisconsin DOT to address this problem. And when you go to asking for DOT grants, you get extra requirements for what you have to do and what information you have to provide them. And that substantially inflates the cost. So it was his guesstimate that maybe we could trim the costs, which, by the way, were estimated to be around $800,000 for a half-mile of road, just to give you some idea. Most expensive project would probably be trimmed back by $200,000 to $250,000. But you have to keep in mind that we still have to contend with the burial sites and the DNR's restrictions. So we would still need an engineering firm, but not to the extent that they would have to design the roadway. So we'd end up doing a cost-benefit analysis in the end, saying, We either go with the DOT and try and get some grants, which inflates our cost, or we try and do it on our own. And as it turns out, there may be some solutions in that regard. The idea of the new road created the most interest. And the idea would be to cut off the curved portions of the road. And it's a little difficult here, but if you follow the yellow road in, follow the yellow brick road in from WD, and where you see the first break, and you see a faint white line there, what would happen is that road would terminate the portion below, and it would go straight across to the green parking lot. So the area that would then appear to be a large U, the yellow portion, would then go back to Wisconsin DNR and become part of the park, which actually had the Whitefish Bay Dunes ranger person or park manager pretty excited, because they apparently have been looking to provide access from Cave Point Park to, access from Whitefish Bay Dunes State Park to Cave Point Park. And so that portion down there, closest to the water, would become a natural walkway or pathway to that park. You're moving my map on me here, laddie. So drawing that straight line across, I think we came up with about 1,200 feet of road that would be necessary. Then we would hire an engineer who would still have to go through the entire process. Once the DNR gives approval, we would create a normal width road, 66 feet. We would have bike paths on both sides, normal shoulders, and a 22-foot paved area. The county would then explore either enlarging or creating additional parking lot to address the needs that are there. If you can move the map up to show us the Jacksonport segment up there, laddie. Okay. Now, if you follow Shower Park north out of Cave Point Park, it goes up to the kayak launch in Jacksonport, and it goes through a residential area. The other item in the proposal was to terminate the northern end of Shower Park Road at the Jacksonport line, create a turnaround for snowplow vehicles, and reduce or eliminate all the traffic that goes through that residential area in Jacksonport. Again, that's just one more of the ideas that were thrown out there. In theory, you could engage Jacksonport in this, in some of the costs perhaps, because I'm sure their neighbors, the neighborhood up there, would be elated to not have to have all the traffic that goes out of Cave Point Park. And so they might be a willing partner in this process. Now, the good news, at least as we found out at this meeting, is that, and we talked about Destination Sturgeon Bay, now we've got Destination Door County. They apparently are putting together some grant funding opportunities that are going to be run through the Door County Community Foundation, and are funding this to the tune of somewhere between $1 and $2 million out of the increased amount of room tax revenues. And it is the belief of the county administrator that this might be an ideal project because it addresses a lot of the things that they are trying to achieve. And so he believes that if we put the town, the county, the DNR, Jacksonport, and everyone together in a concerted effort and apply for these funds, we might be able to get the entire thing and put this road in. Of course, everything is contingent on one thing, and that is the DNR's approval to put the new road in. But quite frankly, I haven't seen the DNR that enthused about anything in decades. So, I mean, it's too bad we didn't capture that on a Zoom, but they seem very excited about the concept, and they would get a good trade-off in that they would pick up land that would obviously go right back to the park. There are some issues in here. One, the county could assume, I don't mean could assume, they would assume the new road and the existing portion of the old road, assuming if the town brings that road up to county standards. Right now, it is not to county standards. It's not to our own town standards, much less. So we might have to make an investment to bring our portion of that road before the new road begins up to county standards if we want the county to assume it. Doesn't mean we have to. That would be our option. If we gave it to the county, we do lose road tax revenue, not a significant fund, but we do. Also, if we donated the road to the north to encourage Jacksonport to participate and create that roundabout, there might be some conversation that needs to happen there. So in the end, we could pay for more development and yet give it away, but we don't necessarily have to do that. And my last comment before questions is it's all up to the DNR, and they tell us within a month they should be able to give us an answer, and after that we can chase a more permanent solution. So, from the board, questions?
Do we have an idea of the cost of that new road?
Well, it certainly isn't $800,000.
What, no,
No, we have no idea.
okay. What is the, we know the length of that road?
1,200 feet, I think, is what it was.
1,200 feet?
Yeah, Hugh was at the meeting as well. Basically, Thad Ash said the engineering, obviously, for a straight road would be pretty simple.
Right.
They could handle that. The biggest issue is that you need permits from the DNR, you need the burial sites, you need the protective species, you need that groundwork. And I'm gonna guess that that's at least half of the $200,000 that Cedar Corp had in their initial bid. So, yeah, Hugh.
Yeah, and the DNR had noted that the further inland you go from the shore, the less risk you have for protected species or burial grounds. Those are usually very close to the shore, and the fact that this approach is more inland may have less risk as a solution.
That is true. So, Linda, you have a question?
So the DNR is going to look at that, if Laddie puts the map back up, but, so that little cutoff, so the top of the curve, I'll say,
Yeah.
over to the white line, the green box corner, they're gonna look at that area to see if there's any, invasive or protected species or burial grounds and all that first, before you...
They think they have a very rough idea of what might be there, and only from observations. Whoa, that map has changed. Okay, so they really, the answer is they really don't know for sure, Linda. They think they have a few indications based on observations, but not really. But what they would do is, this line, white line, is probably not as accurate, but they would literally go right to that corner of that parking lot, or if there's an additional parking lot in there, but get over here. And then this whole piece down here would all revert back to the dunes. So they would go talk to their real estate agents about making that trade. We would give up this whole piece. There is a walking path here, which this used to be a road years ago before it became all of Whitefish Bay Dunes State Park. So they would look at this as a real positive because they want to extend this. They want to, what they're trying to achieve, and you probably know this, Dick, too, is they're trying to get people off of this area down here where there's so much foot traffic that it's creating problems. So this is what's got them pretty interested. Then, as you go back up here, can you drag that down, Laddie?
Just a second.
I don't know if I actually sent you enough. I may not have. Yeah, okay, so this green line is the Jacksonport line. So this would be where the circular turnout would be. We cannot expand this road here. This, if you've been on this road at all, it is just rock. It's just, somebody, literally cut a roadway through, and there's 3-4 foot high rock on both sides. So then Jacksonport, all of these residences that are here, which were the same ones that were so enthusiastic about the marina that was going to be built up there, I say that tongue in cheek, would eliminate that traffic and reduce the problem. So it sounds viable. Yes.
So you would abandon the present road, and that would be part of our trail system from the, we've contacted about a year ago, it's going on 2 years, the DNR engineer, to give us a plan to connect the two parks.
Right.
And, well.
You got it all done?
That's all 2 years ago.
Yeah. I think I've dealt with their real estate people in the past over this issue, so I'm hopeful they're a little bit more responsive, because I've had conversations with them, and so I don't know why they wouldn't be in favor of it, but you never know. But right now, it looks to be the most viable solution and potentially the least costly one for everybody. So,
So the first 800 feet, they have to get rid of that road as well and rebuild it to make it up to county standards?
right, yeah, they would take, and whether we'd want to do that or not is really up to us. I mean, we lose the revenue, we have to, it's kind of like, okay, we have to upgrade it and then give it to the county and
Well, we
lose
don't
that.
have to give it. But I'm
Right.
saying we still have that first 800 feet coming off of WD, we're gonna make it up to the same.
Exact same standard as the new road would be, yeah. So, anyway, I'll keep you posted on it and where we're going, and I'm sure we'll have more meetings. I appreciated the fact that Hugh and Dale both attended the meeting, because this is the kind of us against the world, and so we needed a couple county supervisors to lend their support, and they've done that, so.
I suppose a straight line would be the most economical, but that also creates a speed, are people going to be zooming in there and out?
Well, we
Because
could
it would
always
be
do the old famous speed bumps, like the school.
Plow trucks love that.
Yeah. Well, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. We'll see if we can solve one problem and work on the next, so. Okay. Further, enough conversation on Shower Road. You want to flip up Pioneer Corner? Pioneer Corner is the name given by the developer to the property formerly and so dearly, warmly received Muscat property across from the Mill Supper Club adjacent to C&W. And my purpose tonight is I got an update from the developer, and I thought it merited the board's attention because this has certainly been an active development. He sent me this diagram just to give me an update on where they're at, and I'll share with you just a quick summary of what his plans are as he works through it. It's his intention to create more residential lots on his property than originally anticipated. It's probably tough to see, but he has along the backside of the commercial property some duplexes or townhouses, and the others are single family. He's anticipating going with 4 commercial lots versus the 5 to 6 that he originally expected to do. There will be no C&W access strip, so we don't have any concerns about how that might fit into this particular development. They plan on doing some berming and tree and hedge planting next spring to start to cover that area, both from the backside of the commercial properties and from the bottom and side of C&W. They have decided, they're 99% sure that the roads will be built to town spec, which will mean they will then in turn pass them over to the town, and we will maintain them and plow them into the future, which I think is good versus more private road. The highway access is the same as we have discussed all along with the DOT and with him. It'd be an access at the southernmost point on 57, where the dividing line between Lobenstein's property and the Pioneer Corner is. They anticipate that the roads will be built next spring. They want to coordinate that effort with the same time that the DOT is repaving 4257 up the road, and take advantage of the fact that those crews will be there and do that work at the same time. And lastly, he's hired a new engineering firm to do all of this. So he's got a new firm out of Green Bay he's working with, and the reason for a couple of different ideas on it. But essentially, I think it remains pretty close to what we expected him to do or where he was trending. I don't think there's any negatives in there at all. I think it's the more residences, the better. I mean, I think that's all good news from my perspective. So I wanted to share that with you, and if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them, or we can get an answer for you. So, okay, good to go. All right. Oh, we have an easy topic. Meeting schedule for next year. Anybody have any particular things that come to mind? This is the tentative meeting. It has a date on the top of the most recent revisions. Obviously, we have the annual town meeting in there. Road inspection will set as we get into spring as usual. The open book, board of review, et cetera. Again, that's something we'll work on as we get further into the year, next year. Anybody have any particular issues with the dates that are on here otherwise? Amy, it looks like we can go for the moment with it, subject to revisions. That's
Wonderful.
good. And Jason, you never thought you were going to get to see all of this stuff at a town meeting, did you?
No, but I did read the minutes prior to
Oh,
coming here.
good to go, good to go. All right,
Not as well
so,
informed as I thought I was.
so Jason Feldman is requesting a conditional use permit to establish a trade and contractor's business as a landscaper. Approximately 2.5 acres will be used to install a 40 by 60 pole building and 2 sheds, as well as space to store and stage materials. And Jason came to a plan commission meeting last week, which was chaired by Linda, and I'll let Linda take the conversation from there.
Okay, yes, the Plan Commission addressed this on last Thursday, and it was the unanimous recommendation of the 7 Plan Commission members to support Mr. Feldman's request for a conditional use permit to establish a landscaping business on his parcel off Forest Road. The reasons for the Plan Commission's decision was there was support from the neighbors as well. We did have 2 neighbors here. We thought that the plan and his willingness to screen appropriately would make for an aesthetically pleasing site. Also, adding a new small business to our community would be an asset. Is the proposal consistent with the town's comprehensive plan? We said yes, based on the condition that it is already zoned countryside, and that does allow for a home business. And Mr. Feldman also indicated that he would be doing a lot to preserve and enhance the rural rustic nature of his parcel. We did have some concerns that we would like to see potentially addressed with the conditional use permit, and that was no rental or no commercial rental of any of the property or the buildings. The screening would be, and this was Mr. Feldman's suggestion, cedar trees, 6 feet in height, planting every other, so on center, he indicated that these cedar trees do expand to 14 feet wide or so.
They're western white cedars, so 13-foot at maturity. And Derek, I believe it was, asked if I would do every other one at 6 feet, and I said absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and we just felt that his intent is to keep it as natural and native as possible. The driveway, you have his drawing here in front of you. The driveway would be on the most, I guess that would be the southwestern side of the parcel. Yeah, the vegetation and the screening were our main concerns, especially the view from the neighbors across the street or in the neighborhood. So I don't know if Mr. Feldman, if you want to add anything. He gave a very good comprehensive presentation of his plans. So where his equipment would be stored, the size of the 2 sheds, the size of the main building, the storage, the 2 storage spaces there for dry material. So I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Jason.
I don't know, the only definitive language I might want to change is that the pole barn would not be a steel pole building. I'm looking to build an actual aesthetic Door County barn. And the sheds would be hidden against the white pines that are currently on Forest Road, so most likely you'd have to actually pull into the property to see those. And then the larger building would be what I would like to call a traditional Door County barn. But it'll have a steel roof on it, which, you know, when that became traditional, I don't know, probably in 2000 something. But that's all I'd like to add. If anybody has any questions for me beyond that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is this an existing business?
Yes, I've been in business here in Door County for 12 years.
And where's your business today?
Well, my office is at my home on Utah Street, and I have stage materials on Plum Bottom Road in Egg Harbor.
Okay.
But I am moving from that location.
So I was unaware of your business there. What would your
I've never advertised in Door County because I've never needed to.
What would your business property look like if I was up there, took a ride?
Right now, it looks like
Could you tell us where the property is and we'll show it up on the screen?
the property I have now,
Forest Road, we're on Forest.
5517.
Right across
No,
from
no.
Tommy.
Are you talking about the new property or the old property?
The old,
The old property on Plum I.
no, he's looking for the new
Where
property.
where it's going to be built.
Yeah, the property on Plum Bottom Road, I do not own.
Yeah, I'd like to see the current property.
Right, 4965 Plum Bottom Road.
All right.
I don't own it.
Yes,
That's.
that's the new property, yes.
No.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yeah,
We're asking
well,
it,
this- for-
but that's
since
all
it's
right.
here, the new property
It's right there.
runs right here. 10.81 acres straight back from Forest Road.
I was trying to get to Derek was,
4965 Plum Bottom Road.
there you go.
Okay, what was it, 49?
65 Plum Bottom Road. And you can, it's basically going to be a spitting image of what we're trying to create here, so.
Okay.
Besides the buildings exist already.
Okay, please.
Yeah, so, yep. So you can barely tell there's a landscape business there, and this, it's 20 acres instead of 10.81. This is all forest crop that I planted 23 years ago for the owner. House, this shed is no longer in existence, the barn still stands, and this shed is what I use for storage on that property.
Okay.
And if this was a different time, you'd just see a pile of mulch sitting right there.
Okay, that's good. I thank you for that.
But it doesn't exist right now.
It's always a good idea to get a feel for
Yeah,
what.
so that, you're basically looking at what I want to create, with the exception of the fact that the hay still gets cut for horses on that property, and I will not be providing hay for horses on the new property.
We also talked about that, you indicated that there wouldn't be any logging or
There will
chipping
not
or
be any
anything
logging.
like
I
that
do-
on the property. We also talked about truck traffic in and out, and you indicated that was going to be minimal, maybe once or twice a year that
Right.
somebody would bring in product for
Yeah,
you.
the traffic that the current farming community creates on that road would be much more than I would ever.
So Jason, my last question is, we've had a terrible success rate in people screening their property.
It's already been started, you can go look at it.
Okay, so you're telling me that if we move ahead with this thing's gonna be screened so fast, I'm gonna hardly see anything happening behind it.
Sir, I planted 200 trees already this fall. so-
Kind of got a leg up on the other ones. He knows how to plant trees.
That's
Kinda
absolutely
what he
I
true.
does.
can plant trees like nobody's
Could
business.
I bring some people over and show them what tree planting screening is like?
Yes, absolutely. In my career here in Door County, I've planted over 300,000 trees, so.
I can name you a few places where they could use your services.
They've been asking. Not
Any
probably not the
board,
ones you're concerned about, but others.
any questions from the board otherwise?
Jason also indicated that his employees would be arriving around 7 a.m. and departing and heading out, and then returning at 3:30 p.m. or whatever. And so not a lot of traffic in and out of the parcel.
I, for one, have really like to see the native prairie and the forest crop restoration. I think that'll be great.
Thank you. I believe there will be as well.
Okay, no further discussion? A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve Feldman's conditional use permit.
Motion by Derek, second by
Second.
Second by Mark. To to approve Jason Feldman's request for a conditional use permit and support that through a letter to the RPC. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck.
Thank you, sir. And
You still have to talk to the gentleman on your right.
Oh, we haven't, and it's set for an RPC hearing already
November
on
4th, I
Thursday,
believe.
November 3rd at 3 p.m.
Okay, I have the 4th, but I'll have to check my notes again. Was that 3:30?
3 o'clock
Okay,
on Thursday, November 3rd, yep.
okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on, fireworks ordinance. So included in your packet is a whole bunch of stuff regarding fireworks. Now, the conversation tonight is not about whether we're going to ban fireworks, start selling fireworks, or anything related to that. The conversation tonight is based on a conversation that took place between myself and the school regarding a request to do fireworks at the homecoming event that was held a week or so back after their bonfire, which, as a town, we have no ordinance to govern that whatsoever. And I went to the fire chief, since he is obviously the person that does fire protection for the town, and asked his recommendation. And of course, he asked me how my ordinance worked. And so we did kind of a little bit of a circular route and came to the conclusion that it might be appropriate for us as a town to decide if we want to do an ordinance, so that if a civic organization, I'm not talking about neighbors, were to come again in the future and say, I would like a permit, these are the requirements that that individual would have to meet. And I gave you just a lot of stuff because I got a lot of stuff from either WTA, from Tim Detman, the fire chief, or permit requests. Some of the things you see in there are obviously a permit application and a fee. Fireworks permit in the case of the city, $75, location, name, etc., detailed on it, and that's a single page. Then there are the Wisconsin statutes for fireworks about who can possess, what they can shoot, just as a backdrop. So you often are confronted with people who shoot fireworks off illegally in your neighborhood, so this will help in that question. And then there's some information that says if you're going to use fireworks, or what they'll consider as explosives, there are requirements on how they're handled, where they're stored, how they're transported, as well as requirements before permits are issued, such as a certificate of competency, saying that the individual has knowledge to use these. Also from the city, a recommendation that there is a certificate of insurance to ensure that if there's some subsequent fire, bodily injury, and I think only of what happened in the last 3 or 4 days in Pulaski, which was a bonfire, but there are a number of individuals that are seriously injured as a result of some activity. In terms of hours, etc., in the conversation that I had with the fire chief, and I don't sense this to be a major problem, we've only had one instance that I know of, but that is, he can also say our ordinance could encompass blasting. We did have an individual construction firm that was doing blasting right near the town hall here on a regular basis that we had to engage the county to prohibit. And so it's his suggestion that we maybe take a look at it. That's why I put it in the packet, get your thoughts. We don't have to do anything with it. So I'm looking for your input as to whether we do or don't do it, and then we need eventually to decide what would be included in that ordinance. So that's my backdrop. I look for your input. This is a night where nobody speaks.
To the best of my knowledge, we do not have an ordinance on fireworks.
No.
We had a fireworks permit, but we have never had an ordinance, correct?
Right.
I looked for a fireworks ordinance and I didn't see any. I
No.
saw a permit again, but
We did not have an ordinance. So, and he felt that And by the way, we're going to be in the throes of this again after the first of the year, which is the renewal of our fire protection agreement with the city. So this could fall, this doesn't have to happen now, but it could also fall in as part of that discussion as we refine it over time. So I guess the question is, do we want to have people come forward and do we want to give them a permit if they adhere to the rules, or we would just as soon avoid that? And it would only be civic organizations. I mean, we would not have a neighborhood come forward. This would be the school, whatever.
Was that what you were talking about when Cherry Hills came?
Pardon me?
That when Cherry Hills came to us a couple years ago?
Correct.
Would that be the same? Or
We would
did that
not
cover them or no?
He would not be given a permit under the rules, under the general guidelines here. He would not be a community organization, right? So,
So that's where something like an ordinance, something like that could fit in with.
there could be
We did an
situations
ordinance of
where
that.
somebody has a legitimate use and we would allow it given they're addressing the needs. In the case of Cherry Hills, he was issued a ticket.
Yeah.
He was told not to do it and he did it, and the fire chief went up there and they.
But if you'd have got a permit from the town, he could have done it?
Only if we had included a private individual in an ordinance. If we follow this, they would not be, it would not be the Lions Club or the Sevastopol Community Advancement Association. So it wouldn't be some individual that says, gee, I'd like to have a party and blow off some fireworks.
Yeah, they're still allowed to, you're saying.
Well,
No.
it has to be a
No, they're
bona
not.
fide, a bona fide association, a civic association. Yeah, it has to be.
There's a lot of folks that blow off fireworks that are doing it illegally.
Right. So it's, do we want to consider doing it to a bona fide civic organization? Or, like, for example, in specific, the most recent one was the school. Would we say, okay, the school, if we have an ordinance, the school could have a permit, they have to pay the fee, they have to provide someone that's competent to shoot them off, and they have to provide a liability insurance policy so that someone, covers. If they say yes, and we have an ordinance, then we give them a permit. If we choose not to do that, or not have an ordinance, or not issue that, the answer is simply no, we don't have a provision to do that. But I want to try and take either myself and or the fire chief out of that circle and say, hey, here's the process, or there isn't a process, we're not going to do it.
Well,
So,
would we like to see something in regard to blasting too?
well,
As part of an
we could
ordinance?
incorporate something in blasting. We have only had the issue once, but it went on for, what, Amy, a couple weeks or
Right.
months?
Yep.
Would, I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate here, but in the event, there's the development that's supposedly going forward with the quarry,
Yeah.
and a lot of blasting would probably take place there. So is there any kind of,
Oh,
would
yes.
that fall under something? we
There's
might do?
guidelines, there are guidelines for blasting in here for explosives as well. I mean, you just have to refine what you want to do, and of course, the fire chief's the man that then enforces it.
Yeah, blasting, they do it all the time around here,
Right.
put in basements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the quarry, I mean, they're
I
blasting
think it's
all the
more,
time.
I think it's more got to do with people that, at least as I read it, that maybe don't handle them in the best way. Or maybe it's got to do with frequency in terms of timing. There were hours, for example, in his ordinance. So it's, and if you want to do it and you think it's right, we'll invite the fire chief in and we'll work through some of those issues and get his input. And if you don't want to do it, we will move on. So,
I kind of attribute this to going back to the four-wheeler thing where you guys said that we're wasting the police's time calling them every time someone drives by. Same thing as people shooting off fireworks. Are we wasting the cops calling them all the time, telling them to come out and check people's fireworks? I think it's kind of the same deal in my opinion.
well, we're not on that top, we're not in the same
I don't
wavelength there,
see
Mark.
the connection.
Well, if you're gonna put an ordinance in for, you have to have a municipality or have, or
Civic group.
a civic group, thank you.
Okay.
and they're the only ones that can shoot them off.
Right. So the law says today that an individual can't shoot them off and can be ticketed.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think
we're
that's
not-
gonna create more calls.
Okay.
I personally think just leave well enough alone and let people enjoy their time. That's my thought on it.
It's okay. Anyone else?
Well, a blasting permit, like Mark said, I mean, they're
blasting
blasting all the
here,
time for a foundation.
The county
But they-
covers that.
Right. Does the county have a fireworks ordinance?
I do
I
not
don't
recall.
know.
The state does.
I know that there is one in
The state has
Gibraltar.
statutes,
Yeah,
but
statutes.
There's two of them. Gibraltar has one and,
Sister Bay,
pardon me?
Sister Bay.
Sister Bay. Gibraltar and Sister Bay have them.
would we want, when we renegotiate our fire contract, would we want to include them issuing fire permits, firework permits for us?
Well, they would if we had an ordinance.
Oh, only if we have an ordinance.
Right. Because otherwise it's already
We can't.
illegal.
But if the county has an ordinance and we're under county zoning, I don't know if they have one or not. That's
I
a
don't
good
know.
question.
I'd have to ask the question. I
Yeah.
don't,
I'm looking at the zoning ordinance here. Well, that might fall under nuisance, I'm not
So
sure.
if I understand this right, if we had an ordinance that would involve then a process for a civic organization to do fireworks, they would have a way of doing
Correct.
a process. So
Correct.
that's the good part
Right.
about doing an ordinance, right?
right, otherwise,
Otherwise, it's not. gonna
correct.
happen.
We haven't,
So
we're not giving them a permit.
You've
we're not-
eliminated that from happening.
Right, and the organizations or the groups or individuals that shoot fireworks off and have in the past, that's at their own risk. I mean, it's already defined in statutes that it's illegal, and if they choose to do it and there's an issue and the fire department goes out there, they'll issue a ticket. But if they don't, then that's just what it is.
So one could say if we did an ordinance and we had a mechanism for people to be able to get a permit to do that, to shoot off fireworks, it might actually save on calls that somebody might make objecting to somebody shooting off fireworks, or wouldn't that be?
I don't see a connection there. I
Okay.
mean, if people are bothered by someone, take Glidden Drive, for example, surrounded by woods.
Mhm.
So somebody shooting off fireworks there, the people there are generally not concerned about the noise, they're concerned about
Fire.
the chance of fire.
Yeah.
And we already know that, something like that can't be controlled in that area. So I think that's, and the fire department, like, I think somewhat like Mark said, especially on the 4th of July weekend,
Can't be
they
called.
couldn't respond to 10% of the calls they'd get. But it would just allow someone like the school to do it, or just simply say, no, it's not an option, and move on. So, and we don't have to decide it tonight. I just wanted to bring it to you because the incident came up, and after talking with the fire chief, it was probably the appropriate thing to have for a discussion, and can bring it back another time and talk further about it if you want. It's up to you. So.
I'm not in favor. I mean, even if the school did it, where would it be? At the town
Where
park?
they had their original request was to do it right by the bonfire. So, but,
It's still a very populated area.
yeah, and that's why you'd have insurance and you'd have requirements that they'd come out and fire department comes out and visually inspects the thing and so on and so forth. So, but, all right, I'll tell you what, make life easy. I'll bring it back another month, and we'll discuss it, kick it around a little bit, see what you think. I did have, and I completely forgot to give it to Amy, I did have Gibraltar and Sister Bay's fireworks ordinance, and I'll get you a copy of that. And we'll talk about it again at another meeting. All right? So we have ordinances and resolutions. So in your packet, is this is a request that came from the Door County Child Care, Alexis Fuller. It came from the company that they are working with to put up their building. And they came forward and asked us to cut short the amount of time before they can move forward and request their conditional use by waiving some of the 40-day waiting period for a zoning amendment. This is just the reverse of what we did with Drossard. In that case, we were going to cut it short. In this case, we're going to say, okay, if you agree, we'll take out an extra 20 or 25 days they have to wait, and they can continue to work forward getting their building and coming back to the town for a conditional use permit. So I don't see any issue with it. I think everybody was in favor of it, so I told them I'd put it on the agenda. And if you agree to waive that, all we do is take a motion, pass this, and they can move ahead. So, questions? If no questions, then a motion.
Okay. I'll make
I don't
a
know why,
motion.
Linda, but
I was going to jump in, but go for
I've
it.
never seen such
I'll make a
hesitancy.
motion to approve resolution number 2022-10, waiving the 40-day waiting period for the zoning amendment with regard to the, I think it's Paler Fuller property, the parcel indicated there.
Correct. Motion by Linda, second by
I'll second that.
Jeannie, to approve motion, resolution 2022-10. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We actually accomplished something. All right, financial reports for the month of September. You have the account balances in your packet. You also have the budget versus actual and the transaction by date record. So everybody, I assume, has had an opportunity to take a peek at those. Any questions? We also have the treasurer who has a couple of things she wants to share with us. Amy?
We have received our fourth quarter general transportation needs. The proposed 2023 budget is available for viewing on our website under the Budget and Financial tab. And the public hearing is scheduled for Monday, November 28th at 6 p.m.
Okay. Sounds good. So we need a motion to put the financial reports on record.
I'll make a motion to accept the financial reports and treasury report, September 2022.
All right, motion by Mark, second by
Second?
Derek. What a surprise. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Approval of vouchers, bills, and claims. You've all had a chance to see them and I think sign off on them. That being the case, we're going to need another motion. I know how you dislike doing those tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims for September 20th, 2022 through October 17th, 2022.
Wow. Motion by Jeannie. Who seconded? Mark? Out of sequence, Mark, but nonetheless. Motion by Jeannie, second by Mark. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Never seen anything quite like this. Oral committee reports. And what else here? We have commission reports. We have the communications technology minutes from September 21st. Those are the only printed minutes we have. We'll need them. Motion to put those on file. Anyone have any oral committee reports they would like to make?
Can I mention WTA convention?
Certainly.
All right, so 2 weekends ago, I attended the Wisconsin Towns Association Convention in Appleton, celebrating 75th anniversary, 75 years. It's kind of a we start out with a motivational, speaker, whatever, and, that we all know that our goal as town board supervisors and officers is to meet the needs of our community and improve the quality of our life here in beautiful Door County. I did attend several sessions. Oh, they also mentioned, as you know, Randy Halstead, former chairman of the town of Jacksonport, passed away. He was on Wisconsin Towns Association Advocacy Council, so they did pay their respects to Randy as well. Anyway, I did attend several educational sessions. I found the solar presentation very interesting
They shine
because,
some light on it?
yes,
Wow.
very interesting because developers tend to seek out substations.
Oh, and we
Guess
have
who
one.
has a substation? There, we do have a substation on Dunn Road. And so, they gave hints as if you had a landowner, what should a landowner look for when contracting with a solar developer?
Goats.
We also, what?
Goats.
No goats.
Oh, no goats.
No goats. You can have, like, the solar panels can be high enough to have, like, livestock or crops or whatever growing underneath, but I mentioned that at the meeting, that they don't allow goats because goats tend to jump on solar panels, and that doesn't bid very well with the developer. I also learned that, so if you have a solar farm, you're exempt from taxes as a utility. So utilities don't pay taxes. So, but you pay a utility payment in lieu of taxes, utility revenues. It's $4,000 per megawatt. If you have a developer that intends to develop a project that is more than 100 megawatts, you have no say in it. They can just do it. But if it's under 100 megawatts, then you at least have some input. But anyway, that $4,000 per megawatt gets split between the county and the municipality. So, anyway.
I just don't have any idea what a megawatt is.
Yeah.
I mean, how big is a megawatt farm?
Yeah. So it's something that, we talked at the Plan Commission, we talked about updating or supplementing our comprehensive plan. Maybe that's something that we want to address, like minimum
Maybe we ought
acreage
to
or something
invite-
like that.
Invite somebody in.
I asked Mariah at Door County Land Use, and that is an item that the county land use is going to be looking at. I guess it's been brought up a few times, so Mr. Zettel can keep us posted on that. I also talked to some of the gentlemen from the Board of the Commissioners of Public Lands, where we have our loan. They would be more than happy to loan us money for broadband.
Imagine that.
Yes, imagine that. And he also reminded us that whenever you borrow money from
You have to pay it back.
the board, yeah, you have to pay it
okay.
back, and the interest rate is compatible, but just remember that that money gets kicked back to
interest, yeah.
school libraries.
Yes.
So for instance, Sevastopol received $29,000 as a result of loans through Door County.
You should
Southern
share
Door.
that with the school, that we borrow that money to make your books.
Well, Southern Door, yeah.
Southern Door, 45,000, Sturgeon Bay, 55,000. So if we need money, we should borrow it from the BCPL or whatever. I talked to Cedar Corp, so we're working with Cedar Corp on the Shower Road project. They also do grants. I thought there was one or two here from Door County, but I don't see them. They do planning and grants, comprehensive plans, outdoor recreation plans, land use planning, housing studies. So, we might want to think about using them sometime. And then I attended the broadband work session as well. I found it very interesting that Langley County, countywide, got a grant. Their total project was $5 million. They received $2 million in an ISP match from Serenity, 2.5 million in PSC grants. So between the town and the county, they had less than 400,000 invested. And that was for, obviously, they're smaller than Door County, 1,500 households, but.
Langley?
I
Boy, I would've thought it was
think maybe
bigger,
they're
but-
bigger, but they don't have the population that Door County has.
Land
They have
mass-wise,
10,000 less people than we do, because they're more rural. So anyway,
Was
like
it 2 million out of 5?
2.5.
4.9 million, 2 million the ISP matched.
Yep.
So they kicked in almost 50%. Yeah. And then I also heard a session from, I think she was from Kerber Rose, talking about the interest rates. So the forecast, we don't know what the forecast is going to be. Probably higher. So anyway, I just think they're worthwhile.
Oh, good. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
All right, next on our little agenda here is we have our county board report from District 14 Supervisor Hugh Zettel. Hugh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sent this out earlier today, and I assume our faithful clerk forwarded to you in your meeting packets. I want to summarize a couple things. The resolutions are all pretty straightforward. The one I just wanted to note was the County Board gave authorization to Phase 2 of the Door County Archives and Historical Museum Facility Construction Project, which is basically a design phase of the proposed site location for the expansion. And the ordinances for the Fuller rezoning and the report amendment was unanimously passed by the County Board as well in their September meeting. Relative to the broadband specific or the assigned committees that I work on, as the chair of the broadband committee, we have great progress on the WISER survey. And actually at our most recent meeting, we have over 2,000 respondents of the survey countywide, and that compares with roughly 900 that was done as part of the Finley study in the 2020 range, 2019 range. So we kind of double the respondents, but we still need to get more respondents. In particular, it's going to be helpful for those municipalities as they go through their grant writing process. The more that they have responses from their residents in their municipalities, the more that helps them in their grant writing endeavors. Relative to the town of Sevastopol, if I compare the latest update of WISER data that we got, that the county received, it's roughly 330 some responses for the town of Sevastopol. That compares with roughly 430 respondents of the survey that Sevastopol undertook by themselves. So we're working with the county to see how we can integrate the Sevastopol survey results and make them part of the broader WISER population. Yeah. That'll increase the respondents and give better data relative to at the point that we look at potential grant activity based on what the municipality decides to do. In addition, Newaswapi signed kind of a letter of intent with Bertram to look at financing options for the town of Newaswapi, and town of Jacksonport Broadband Committee has recommended Frontier for their implementation, and they're going to, I believe, public hearing and town board meeting, I think, this week.
They got an electors meeting this week.
Yeah. Lots of activity on the broadband piece, and continued great progress. The county is involved. The county is one of, I think, 3 other counties that is helping the state of Wisconsin look at the FCC data. The FCC, as we know, has had incomplete data because they base it on census blocks, and if one person had great broadband in that census block, it was perceived to be that performance in that entire census block, which we know is totally inaccurate. So the FCC has a new requirement that includes the ISP providers provide more granular data relative to actual connections to physical structures within a municipality. So the FCC has a set of data that they have given back to the state, and then the state gets to check the accuracy of that data and be able to challenge it. And so they are working with Door County along with Brown County and one other that doesn't come to mind right now. But basically, we're looking at that FCC data and helping the state to determine where it's inaccurate, and then basically providing a response back to the FCC to see where there's deficiencies in their data. the FCC will come back again with another set of data for us to evaluate, again, to make sure it's accurate. And that's where this survey data that we do in the town is so important, because the more accurate information we have as far as what people have for performance or whether or not they even have broadband access is critical, and that helps us challenge the FCC to update their maps. And then as we go to get grant money, it's making sure that we can do that properly.
Will you repeat those words really loud again? So even though that Wiser survey that was sent out to the people of Sevastopol with an end date, it's set of September 30th or whatever it was, they can still respond to the
yes.
survey. So please respond to the survey.
It's kind of like Chicago voting, vote early, vote often. So you can even take your speed test multiple times, because they can record it multiple times, because we know broadband performance is not necessarily static. I think one of the things that's also something that we're working on is working to engage the school districts. Every year, the school districts across the state fill out a Department of Public Instruction survey regarding broadband access. And some of the school districts provide that information and make that publishable by the state. Others do not upload and provide their information. And that's important, because some of the statistics in that survey says what percentage of your families have broadband access. And if they say no, then that survey also is informative to tell you whether or not it's because of affordability or whether it's about availability. And those are important factors for us for grant writing. So if for any municipality that wants to go after grants, having that sort of information is going to be very powerful relative to trying to get grant money. And we all know from the COVID experiences what it was like not having broadband access, especially for families trying to do remote learning. And so I think we need to continue to engage our school district partners to make sure that they can make that data available, because it's going to be very important to the families within the municipalities that are going after grants. And again, it's a nice, credible source. And especially on the affordability side, as part of a lot of the broadband grant monies, every internet service provider that works in partnership with your municipality has to have a reduced subscription funded capability. So in other words, if you can't afford it, there is a program that the federal government runs where they must allow for a subsidy for low income families to, I believe it's up to like $30 a month or more, less. And that's on top of some internet service providers may provide, say, 100 megabit symmetric upload and download, which is still significant compared to what a lot of people have today. And so even at that lower rate, plus that $30 a month subsidy for a lot of families could result in them having to pay basically nothing for internet service on a monthly basis, which would be critical for them and their families. So a lot of great work going on, and we'll have some more progress relative to the reporting as we continue on through the rest of the year. Lastly, I just want to talk about my other committee work on the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. And as you know, there's a proposal for Door County Medical Center to engage in a partnership with the county to basically provide expanded EMS resources for transport services. And that would basically be done in a way that is a net zero cost to taxpayers relative to expanding EMS service for the primary purpose of supporting transfers. And in our committee, basically there was a request in the September meeting to approve adding the resources just for the purposes of putting the financial budget together. I had raised some questions because at this point, there's still not a term sheet relative to, how the proposed structure of the project would go, and at least would be great to understand what does, being zero cost mean, and making sure the county would be held whole, and making sure it's net neutral as far as impact to the county. One of the challenges that the county has is for them even providing the transport services, all the billing would still have to go through the county. That's just the nature of how healthcare expenditures work. So it's not like, the county could charge for it, it's not like the medical center could do the payment for the transfer. It's basically the county that's still delivering the service. We would have to try to get reimbursement from an insurance company, and if we couldn't get reimbursed, we'd have to still find mechanisms in order to get paid. There's a lot of back office billing gyrations that go through that, having worked in the medical industry for 36 plus years, including selling software that does billing.
Didn't work.
It's very complex, and so there's a lot of cost, not just in EMS personnel, but also in billing personnel in order to do that. Also, there's just I think the fundamental concern I have about the county basically getting into a private enterprise business. At the end of the day, our remit from a county perspective is provide emergency medical services, and we complete that mission when we deliver that patient safely to a hospital. And I think that's kind of where our responsibility ends. And so not having a term sheet and having an understanding of what the full extent of the services is, when this was voted, I voted no. So I just want to, as my constituents, want to make sure you understand that. And if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to try to answer them. So with that, any questions?
I have one question.
I think Linda's got a question. It's shocking, as it may be.
We briefly touched on this on our budget work session. So the Communications Advisory Committee, which there's still the new communication systems, radios and all that, which I think they're moving
CATS
ahead on.
committee, yes.
Yeah, the CATS committee, moving ahead on and picking a direction or whatever. Do you see, if they switch to a new radio system or communication system, do you see where the town might have to contribute or have an expense for our EMRs as far as new radios and things that we need to be thinking about or budgeting for that?
Probably a little bit more granular question than I think I'm ready to answer at this point. I think it's not a matter of if they put a new system, it's when, because they have to meet a Department of Homeland Security requirement by 2028, and so they have to deploy a new technology. And I believe with the contractor that they are working with, they should have kind of a preliminary assessment of what they might need by the end of this year. Where that's still important from a town perspective, and it's actually reflected in the RFP for broadband that the town submitted, is with the new technology that they're looking at for the emergency services. It's a digital technology, and because of its capabilities, you're going to have to put towers approximately every 5 miles for you to get signal. Well, that says you're going to have quite a fabric of towers throughout the county. And in order to operate those towers, you're going to probably have to run fiber, before you're broadcasting those signals to do that reliably. So one of the things we talked about, we put in, or that the committee put in its RFP, is saying if I have to lay fiber for these communications towers, can we dig once and put the fiber in for the county, knowing in anticipation you're going to have maybe a tower by Cape Point or one by Whitefish Bay Dock or some of these other areas. Just when you're thinking about having stuff every 5 miles, that's quite a network of towers you're going to have. So you're going to have to lay quite a bit of infrastructure. And if we can do that with the county to lay it once, in anticipation of that. That would save, obviously the county taxpayers, and in some cost sharing could help municipalities in their potential broadband projects. So those are just things that we're doing, and the language actually that the town put in its RFP was discussed and accepted by the county administrator. So they're all in favor of trying to dig once, trying to lay out that capability. So Linda, not knowing specifically for EMRs, too early to tell relative to specifics, but from an infrastructure perspective, we're trying to do things synergistically relative to what the county is going to be needing to do for its capabilities, and trying to do it smart relative to the broadband implementation.
I would like to add on to your piece, just since you brought it up. Not everyone knows, but we did send out a RFP, a request for proposal, to 4 or 5 different ISPs, last Friday, and expect results, responses, I should say, within 30 days, and we'll evaluate that, and depending on the responses, we'll hold a public hearing in January and reach some conclusion on where that stands from a town perspective. So it's farther along than many people might think, and yet it's still a long way off. But at any rate, that's the timetable. Are you done otherwise, Hugh?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the time this evening. Slipping back in here to our agenda, we have license and permits for the month, as you have from Door County Inspections. And then we delve into the deep world of correspondence. We did get an update on our population from the state, and we now have anticipated or expect somewhere there are 2,858 of us hiding in this town, and 2,453 are of voting age. So the next election, they should all show up.
It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
How many are of voting age?
Yeah.
Well, an old folk area, if you will.
But I mean, the school, it seems, I know it comes from more in this town.
You have a copy of a letter to Steve Estes, excuse me, thanking him for taking care of the property known as the Boathouse Antiques, the grass you can actually walk through now. Notice of a pending application for an after-the-fact retaining wall. This is an interesting one in that in the after-the-fact application is a sentence 2/3 of the way down that says it is the department's tentative determination that it will deny this permit. So I'd like to understand that process.
Well, my guess would be because of the steel, but I don't know.
But
You know,
it's-
instead of natural riprap, because that's what they want. So I'm like, yeah, how do they do this and then
And then
don't
ask
get
for
it?
after the fact.
It's after the fact they would deny it?
I know,
They
it's-
already let them do it.
It's pretty
No, that's
confusing.
not how it works.
Pardon me?
They did it.
Yeah,
it's
they did
done.
it.
They're not asking for it. They got turned in and got caught, so it's basically getting fined
Right.
for it.
Yeah, well, they haven't
They're
figured
not
out where.
themselves not asking for this permit. They got caught.
It's a awkward process, but
Yeah.
at any rate. We also have a copy, we renewed the dog catcher, cat catcher permit. And there's a little detail in here if you're interested in reading on the Wisconsin 42 project, which goes from Sturgeon Bay to Egg Harbor. And this one is scheduled for 2024. Yeah, 2024. Don't get this confused with the section from the roundabout to the mill, which is next summer.
year, yeah.
Right, and that's the part that falls into Drosser's area as well. General transportation aids. I don't know if anybody watched the debates that were on between
Tony Evers.
Tony Evers and Michaels, and there was a lot of conversation about shared revenues.
By Tony Evers in particular.
Yeah, and we get shared revenues as a town, and I thought it was interesting that he was going to guarantee us somewhere between 2 to 4%. And I can't remember the exact number of shared revenues, but trust me, we're not going to be buying bullets for our police department with the 4%. It needs to go a lot more than that. But at any rate, it was an interesting conversation. City of Sturgeon Bay Fire Department report for the town. And that concludes the correspondence. We have a special budget board meeting. on Monday, November 28th, and this happens at 6 o'clock. This is where we go through the annual budget and ask you to approve your mill rate. And our fourth annual town Christmas party will be on Friday, December 2nd, from 5 to 8 p.m.
Already?
I can't believe it. It seemed to me like we had our third annual was probably last year, just a year ago. And 2 years ago, we would have had our second. So, at any rate, it seems to me that the two persons that are responsible for this are to blame, are putting it together. And again, it's Friday, December 2nd, 5 to 8. And frankly, we've had a lot of fun. We've had good participation. Food's been good. We've had a few cocktails, and the kids enjoyed Santa. So if you haven't thought about that night, shouldn't conflict with anything else because it's early. Come join us. Our Park and Rec meeting is Tuesday, December 13th at 6 p.m. The next Board of Supervisors meeting is December 19th. And that's after...
The Communications Technology Committee is meeting on Wednesday.
Yes, their Communications Technology meeting is meeting on Wednesday regarding some more excellent information on our RFP. And I think that is everything for this evening. So with that, and this is the only time we ever get anybody with any enthusiasm to create a motion to adjourn.
I think I'll create that motion.
I think I'll second.
Motion by Derek, second by Mark. We should just deny this. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Always carries. Thank you and good evening. Thanks for...